welcome back to another video. As always, I am so excited to have you guys here and excited for another What I Eat in a Week. You guys know I love sharing these. I always advocate for a whole food based diet that is rich in fiber and protein, polyphenols, and micronutrients, that we are sourcing our food from the highest quality that we have access to and we can afford, that we're working on getting a wide variety of foods in our diet. Definitely something that I personally struggle with, and that we are taking a very simplified approach to our nutrition. I definitely think that nutrition gets overcomplicated online, and a lot of the times we end up focusing on things that aren't actually going to move the needle that much when it comes to our health. The biggest things that make a difference when it comes to your nutrition is removing ultra processed foods, making sure that you're getting enough fiber and protein. I really aim for over 30 grams of fiber per day. That's really what we see gives you the most benefit when it comes to metabolic health, gut health, hormonal health. You really want to aim for that high fiber diet, and then also having about 25 to 30 grams of protein at every meal. That keeps me satiated, it keeps me full and energized throughout the day. And then of course, trying to get as many fruits and vegetables and micronutrient dense food in as well. So starting off the week, I decided to prep some veggies. I love doing a big batch of sauteed veggies because I can add them to my breakfast or lunches throughout the week. Here I did some onions, again, part of the allium family. They are fantastic for gut health. I added in some orange pepper for vitamin C. Then you guys know I love mushrooms. So here I did a mix of white and shiitake mushrooms. Shiitake are probably my favorite. And then I just set those aside and scrambled up a few eggs with cottage cheese. Like I said, I aim for about 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. So the eggs have about 13 grams of protein between the two of them. I didn't use a full serving of the cottage cheese, so it was probably around 7 grams. So we're up to 20. And then the tortillas that I like to use are the Ezekiel sprouted tortillas. They are made with 100% whole grains, and they even have some legumes in them as well. I think they have lentils. So the tortilla actually has 7 grams of protein. So between that, the eggs, and the cottage cheese, we're up to 27 grams of protein, which is great. And this is a fiber packed meal. The tortilla has about 5 grams of fiber. I mashed up half an avocado, so that has about another 5 grams. And then you have a few more grams just from the vegetables. In this meal, we have about 27 grams of protein and 12 grams of fiber, which is amazing. We also have tons of micronutrients between all the different vegetables and the avocado and the eggs, specifically the egg yolks. Those are truly nature's multivitamin. And it's one of the reasons why I have this meal so often. I have it at least a few times a week just because I know that it's a really simple, reliable, and tasty way to get in a good amount of micronutrients, protein, and fiber. And then after my breakfast, I just made a coffee. This is the milk that I really like to use. It's a cashew milk by Elmhurst. I really like it because the only ingredients are filtered water and cashews. And then moving on to lunch. Lunch on Mondays is generally leftovers from the weekend. Me and my boyfriend love doing roasted broccoli, sweet potatoes, and salmon. So I just warmed up some of that. I talked about this in my last video, but I do try and get fatty fish a few times a week just for the omega-3s. I do really love salmon, so I'll have that a few times a week. And then I also love sardines. They're super affordable. They're lower on the food chain than salmon, so they tend to have lower levels of mercury. They're also super high in vitamin D and calcium. I really call them a menopause superfood for that reason. And then I also had some leftover broccoli. I love having cruciferous vegetables. It's great for helping to support the liver and supporting liver detoxification. And then you guys know I love Japanese sweet potatoes. I also topped it off with a little bit of tahini and just a very quick and simple lunch. And then as we move into the fall, I've been loving doing baked oats for breakfast for the days that I have to go into the clinic. So on Monday, I prepped a big batch. I will put all the measurements up on the screen. It makes about 2 servings. I really like this recipe because again, it's high protein and high fiber. We have a bunch of protein from the cottage cheese, the eggs, and we actually have some additional protein from the collagen as well. I get asked all the time if collagen counts towards your total protein goals for the day. And while collagen is a protein, it has a very specific amino acid profile. So I always say it does count towards your total protein, but you want to make sure that you're pairing it with other sources of protein to make sure that you're getting a really balanced and complete amino acid profile. So here we're also pairing it with the eggs and the cottage cheese. And then this has tons of fiber. Of course, I'm using oats as the base for these baked oats, but then I also add in chia and flax. These are a great source of plant-based omega-3s and also a really great source of fiber. With nuts and seeds, you always want to make sure that you store them in the freezer, preserve their freshness. And for flax seeds, you want to try and grind them as close to when you're eating them as possible. And then I always like to add in whatever fruit I have on hand. Here I had some apples, so I grated that. And then I was kind of going for a carrot cake vibe, so I also added in some carrots, but really you can use whatever fruit you have on hand. And then for dinner, I just had some leftovers that we had made up on the weekend. So we made a big batch of pasta sauce. This one we made with ground beef and ground lamb. And I always like to do a 1-to-1 mix of the protein and extra veggies. So when we originally made this, I probably added about 6 cups of shiitake and white mushrooms, also a bunch of onion, cooked it down. It just helps to bulk up the pasta sauce and add some extra veggies. And then I just cooked up some brown rice and quinoa pasta. Again, a great high fiber pasta to add to this meal. And while everything was warming up, I just snacked on some kimchi. I try to have either kimchi or sauerkraut every day because those are my 2 favorite fermented foods. But unless I'm having a salad, I don't tend to add them to my meals. So I'll usually just have a few bites of them while I'm cooking my dinner just to help support my gut health. This was a super simple dinner. I also added some Parmesan cheese on top. But again, you have lots of fiber from the pasta and the veggies, lots of protein from the lamb and the ground beef, and just tons of micronutrients. And then I just had a piece of banana bread with peanut butter for dessert. On Tuesday mornings, you guys know I go into the clinic pretty early, so that is why I always like to have a breakfast prepped. Here, I took some of my oatmeal and I cooked it with some almond butter. If you're trying to add more probiotics to your diet, you could also have this with some kefir, or if you were looking to up the protein even more, you could have it with some Greek yogurt. And then you guys know I get home from the clinic in the early afternoons and I always want something quick and easy for lunch. Here, I'm just making another one of my egg quesadillas. Like I said, I like to have the same meals over and over again. It just cuts down on decision fatigue. Plus, if I have everything prepped, they just come together really, really quick. And one of the reasons why I love doing a big batch of different roasted vegetables or sauteed vegetables is, yes, because it just makes my meals come together so quick, but also it helps me add more diversity to my diet rather than just having one type of vegetable. So for example, here, there's actually 7 different grains in the tortilla, and then we have 4 different vegetables in the saute blend. Plus we have the avocado. So we're already at 12 different plants in this meal. And this is a really easy way that I have found to get to that 30 different plants per week. Plus, it's just delicious. Soups, stews, and sheep ham roasts are other ways that I really find it's easy for me to get a lot of diversity in my diet. Just thinking about ways that you can add more diversity into your diet, because diversity is really the key to a healthy gut microbiome. And a healthy gut microbiome just sets us up for metabolic health. It sets us up for hormonal health, sets us up for really good immune system health. I'm always getting questions on how we can better support our immune system. And of course, there are herbs like andrographis and astragalus, which I love to use to help support the immune system. But I think we also forget the really critical role that our gut microbiome plays in our immune system as well. And you guys know one of my favorite protein sources to make up every week is chicken thighs. I always make these on my stainless steel pan, and I usually just keep the seasoning pretty simple. I do salt, garlic powder, and parsley. That way I can really use the leftovers in any way I want. The seasoning is pretty neutral. So I cooked that up, and then I just warmed up some leftover carrot and parsnip hash. I made this in my Sunday reset video, so I will link that video. And then I also just had it with some of the leftover sweet potatoes, topped it off with some tahini, of course, and really, this is a simple meal that I love. You have veggies, protein, some complex carbohydrates, some healthy fats, and you are good to go. And of course, I had some banana bread and peanut butter for dessert.
Stay She's got the phone call twisted around her finger. She's a sight to see.
And then for breakfast on Wednesday, I just made up a big chicken and veggie hash. So I used the leftover parsnip and carrot hash that I had made on the weekend. Also added in some sweet potatoes, and I added in some of the leftover chicken thighs just to help bulk up the protein in addition to the eggs. I always get questions from patients on how to incorporate more vegetables into their breakfast. And this is one way that I have been loving getting more veggies into my breakfast. You have tons in the carrots and parsnips, and you can even add potatoes if you don't like sweet potatoes. And you have tons of fiber between the hash and the avocado. You have lots of protein between the chicken and the eggs. And really, because the eggs are the only thing that I had to cook, everything else I just had to warm up. This breakfast comes together super, super quick. And then after breakfast, I just had a coffee.
She's got the pink sunglasses, high heels, gonna walk it out. Now, Jane, what you doing in the backseat?
And on Wednesdays, I go into the clinic in the afternoon, so I wanted to get an early start on lunch. I decided to bake up some tofu. If you guys have been following my channel for a while, you know that I used to be fully plant-based, and I often get asked why I decided to add meat back into my diet. And I think right now it seems like everyone either eats exclusively plant-based or exclusively meat, but I'm actually a big supporter of including both plant and animal sources of protein in the diet. It really comes back to nutrient diversity. So different protein sources are going to have different amino acid profiles and different nutrients. For example, I love including tofu in my diet. It's a great source of natural phytoestrogens that can be really helpful for female hormonal health. It's also a great source of calcium. On a side note, phytoestrogens are different than xenoestrogens. I see people mix those up all the time, and they're definitely different. And then with any sort of soy product, I always just make sure that I get it organic. And then on the other hand, I felt great when I added in eggs, dairy, meat, and fatty fish back into my diet. Adding in fatty fish was a really easy way to get bioavailable omega-3s. Dairy made it easier for me to hit my calcium goals. I always say this, but egg yolks are really like nature's multivitamin. They're a great source of choline that's really important for liver function. And then chicken and meat were a really easy way for me to hit my protein goals and get higher levels of some amino acids that are harder to get on a plant-based diet. And like I said, they're gonna have different micronutrient profiles as well. Chicken is really high in different B vitamins. I like including red meat a few times a week. It's a really great source of carnitine that is really, really important for our body to function well. I also sometimes get asked about the difference in terms of bioavailability between plant and animal-based sources of protein, and we definitely know that there is a difference. We know that plant-based sources of protein are less bioavailable. If I have a patient that's exclusively eating plant-based sources of protein, often I will have them multiply their protein needs by about 1.1 to 1.4 just to make sure that we're making up for that difference. But if someone is eating mainly animal-based sources of protein, but on occasion they're eating some plant-based sources of protein, kind of like the way that my diet is set up, I don't tend to worry too much about that difference in bioavailability. While I was making up my tofu, I also made up some delicata squash. You guys will see I thought I grabbed my cinnamon container. I accidentally grabbed the parsley container and dumped parsley all over my squash, but we did our best to salvage it. I definitely prefer Ceylon cinnamon as a seasoning for the squash, but it was delicious nonetheless. And then for lunch, I just made a really simple bowl. I added some of the delicata squash, some of the tofu. I also added in some of the leftover parsnips and carrots that I had and some sweet potato. I topped it off with a bunch of tahini. I was right at the bottom of my tahini container, so it wasn't drizzling very well, but I definitely added in a lot more after. And then I got off of work pretty late, but we went to our friend's house for dinner. We ordered sushi, and then my friend made a pumpkin pie, so I had a piece of that. It was absolutely delicious and just a really, really relaxing evening. So nice to spend that time with friends.
Stars are blue with a soft glow, lighting up the night.
And on Thursday morning, I decided to make a big batch of my banana bread. I will put all the ingredients that I use somewhere on the screen and how long I cook it for. And then if you guys have been watching my What I Eat in a Week, you know I got an Instant Pot specifically to make bone broth. And this was my second attempt at making bone broth. I didn't roast my bones this time. I just added in whatever aromatics I had. I had a bunch of really sad celery that I had to use up. I also added in some bay leaves, parsley. I threw in a little bit of apple cider vinegar and then a bunch of filtered water. And then this time I cooked it for 120. I think it turned out better than the first time that I made it, but I will keep you guys updated. I ended up using all of the broth to make a big soup on the weekend. I will keep you guys updated on the bone broth making journey. And then normally I'm just in the clinic on the afternoons on Thursdays, but on this particular Thursday, I had to go in a little bit early. So I had to pack my lunch and I decided to just take a giant salad. Another way that I really like to sneak more variety into my diet is through spring mixes, because normally they'll have 6 or 7 different types of lettuce and greens in them. And then I love adding roasted veggies to my fall salads. So here I added some of the squash, some of the sweet potatoes, and then for my protein source, I just cut up a bunch of the chicken. This is one of the reasons why I love keeping chicken on hand. I had half an avocado in the fridge, so I threw that in as well. And then I like to keep my dressings pretty simple. I usually will just do salt. I usually add dried parsley, but I had a bunch of fresh, so I added that in as well. And then for my dressing, I just did balsamic vinegar and extra virgin olive oil and took that with me to work. Then on Friday, I had to go into the clinic all day, so I just took more of my baked oats and almond butter for breakfast, and then for lunch, I made basically the exact same salad that I had had the day before, but instead of chicken, I just added the leftover tofu. I added some avocado on top, and then I like to use leftover seasoning jars as my salad dressing jars, so I added in some extra virgin olive oil, balsamic vinegar, salt, shook that up, and took it all with me, and I was in the clinic the whole day. And then for dinner, we actually ended up going to a family dinner. It was my parents, my brother and his girlfriend, and then me and my boyfriend. It was super delicious. My dad made his chickpea peanut curry, which is one of my favorite dishes, and some brown rice. And then we also had a big mixed green salad. He also roasted up some beets. He made this plant-based parmesan. My parents are actually fully plant-based, so whenever we go over, the meals that we eat are completely vegan, but they're always delicious. And then for dessert, my brother did make some apple crisp. It was nice to not have to cook after being at the office all day, and it was always great to spend time with family. And then you guys know I never really film on the weekends, but I always like to include some clips. So this weekend I used the bone broth to make this turmeric coconut chicken soup. This is probably going to become one of my favorite winter dishes. It was so delicious. I made a version of this a few videos back, so I will link that video. I've been playing around with the recipe, playing around with the spices, just figuring out what I like. I really like doing that. When I first find a recipe that I like, I make it the way the recipe says to make it. And then the following times I'll kind of play around with it and customize it so it's to my liking. And then we also picked up a sourdough baguette from a local bakery. So we had that with the soup and it was super delicious. And then on Sunday, we just had our normal veggie scramble. But with that being said, it does bring us to the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Also, let me know if you have any questions or thoughts down in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys want to see more of on this channel. If you're not subscribed, we would love to have you here. So definitely click the subscribe button. If you guys are looking for more content, you can always check out my Instagram or join my email list. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.